Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you so much. I'm really happy to see you all attending this cybersecurity webinar. I'm Shreya. I'm sure you all are incredibly busy, but you actually realize the importance of cybersecurity, and you're among those people who place it at the highest value. We now have the speaker, the Parvez Diwan, primarily in technology transformation for multinational corporations. He's the man on the ground, not a theoretical figure. He's responsible for protecting businesses against cyber attacks. He develops plans and advises businesses on how to prepare for existing and future risk. So, Mr. Parvez, we have you. The stage is yours. And also feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A section.
Thank you very much, Shreya. Thank you very much for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. I know you have taken the time out for the cybersecurity session, and I'm going to ensure that things work out well. Okay, so let me start the session. This is basically going to be on cybersecurity awareness training. Let me first go through what we are going to learn today. So, primarily, why is information security so important? And the biggest threat to it, which is BEC. I'll come to BEC. I get a lot of questions on antivirus aspects of security. Maybe I'll get into that. And of course, everybody's bane, which is passwords. There's a very interesting concept I'd like to introduce to you on how to create defenses. And primarily, we'll get into the compliance and the legal aspect of it finally. Why is it important to companies? And Q&A. So without much ado, let me just start. The first couple of slides are going to be more about definition, but it's important that we are all on the same page. Why is information security important? Okay, information security is important because it helps us protect what is important to us, like our intellectual property. It is also important to us because it helps us with our business transactions. It helps us with our financials, of course, and the kind of figures we are losing to scams and things like that. And of course, it protects our PII, the personal identity which we have. We have our phone numbers, we have our salary slips, we have our mobile data. And primarily what you're saying is protecting information is not a technology challenge at all. People say, okay, I have a firewall, I have an antivirus, I have this, and that, but it is also related to the people and how they work and how things are set up for them to work. And this session is going to basically deal with that. It's going to tell you how to work with your cybersecurity. There's one more thing which I think you should primarily focus on, which is a cybersecurity breach can have serious consequences. Now you say, okay, this is very important to us, but what will be the impact of it? Means what can maximum somebody do? But yes, there's data loss for companies. There is loss of sensitive information, as I said, intellectual property. There is financial losses. There is damage to the organization's reputation. And of course, legal. I'll actually give you a use case, a case study on how my entire presentation is about case studies and actual sessions which Matrix3D handles on a day-to-day basis. I will give you real-world examples, and I would like to show you that how much of an impact this creates. And the worst thing is that all of this will cause downtime to the business. What you mean by downtime to the business is that not only will it disrupt your normal flow, it will cause financial loss of reputation, but you are in flow and the business will be impacted by this. Let me go to the next one. Now, people talk about a lot of things in cybersecurity, protecting, etc. But I believe that the biggest threat to Indian business is something called as BEC, business email compromise, and we almost on a weekly basis deal with cases with business email compromise. This is something which a lot of malicious actors are successful in India with, I assume most of you all are from India and you understand the impact. So let me elaborate and explain to you what is BEC and how it impacts. And India is impacted maximum through BEC. So let me go to the next slide. I'm just going to explain to you how this works. First, basically an attacker tries to get information about the company. It does social engineering, it finds out the name, address, it finds out which email ID, who is authorizing, who are the people. This is pretty easy because the data of the company is available on various websites, who is the CEO, who is the CFO, who are the managing director, who are the directors in the company. An attacker will primarily try to look at that and get that information. Then what the person does is the person basically sends an urgent mail from an ID. So what happens is the account is compromised. You come to know, okay, I don't need to compromise the account of everybody or anybody. I just need to compromise the account of somebody who's a critical asset. There's a concept where the whale in the company, the biggest fish in the sea, and that's how it goes. Basically, you suddenly, and it could also be as simple as compromising somebody junior and saying, hey, look, I want your salary slip, or I want this information, or how many computers do you have in your company? We've had many cases where it has been just simpler people compromised. From that, lateral movement has allowed the whole company to be compromised, and the person gets a mail. The person gets a mail saying, hey, I need to transfer this amount of money. I need to transfer this. So it comes from the CEO, it comes from the CFO, it comes from HR. And the person says, sure, I want to do that. I want to do that. That has come from my CEO, it has come from my CFO, it has come from somebody important in my company. Let me try to do that immediately. It is urgent, it is important. That person is there and needs that data important. So the person immediately responds. It is usually a person at a mid-level who authorizes payments, who's allowed regular, and they make the payment. Then what happens? Then what happens is the transaction happens. The transaction, the money is gone. The money is transferred to an account, the money is transferred, and the details come in separately. I will show you in the next few slides the actual example of all these things, of how the account is compromised. And it is completely done out of ignorance, or it is done out of urgency, or it is done out of the person thinking, wow, this is, oh, my CEO is calling me up, my CEO is sending me a message, my CEO is sending me an email, and he's urgently fixed up. And once after a time, or after some time, when it gets clear, then a lot of things happen in the company, heads roll, compromise is done. We find that most of BECs are not even reported to the agencies. They are hidden by the company. They believe that they can take over. And this, what they do not understand is that this is just that their entire accounts, their entire email account has been compromised. They do not look at that. They say, okay, we will now manually verify, we will do that. But there's an investigation and a forensic evidence, which a lot of larger companies don't do. And we have many examples where companies have got compromised and not taken action, except maybe gone into a manual process and got compromised again. Let me explain you the 4 main types of BECs. Okay. First one is bogus invoice. This is the one which is most in India prevalent. The attacker primarily impersonates your regular vendor. You make payments every month to somebody. The person from a regular guy, let's say Rajesh, and Rajesh and your accounts person have been talking for the last 5 years. Rajesh's account is compromised. Rajesh's mail, and the person has already compromised your email system, and a mail comes from there saying, hey, look, I'm sorry, but today do not make the payment of this invoice, because the person has been monitoring for a few weeks, for a few months your account, and says, my bank has changed, please make it to, I don't want to make it to bank A, for this, please make it to bank B. That's called a bogus bank. Data theft, obviously this is the easiest of that. I will put in a thing saying, hey, your password needs to be changed, please give me your password, your email account credentials need to be redone. CEO fraud, which I just explained right now, that people are saying, your CEO suddenly sends you an email saying, please meet immediately. And I'll show you an example which happened just 15 days back in our organization. And I have the evidence. I'm going to show that to you. And finally, legal impersonation, where email comes from, let's say, the income tax or from the GST saying, hey, this is the problem. So let me go immediately into the examples. I'll show you the one which is something which we use all the time. You can see this, that this was a typical email. So this is actually from one of our clients. Of course, I've hidden and changed a lot of information here, but general format remains the same. So regular payment, and in the payment, what happens is the person says, hey, sorry, I need to change the bank. This invoice is there because your account is being monitored. This invoice was there. Kindly make a payment to this bank and not to the other bank. And you make the payment. The accounts have been dealing with that person for a long time. And all you want is a change of bank. And every company will have multiple bank accounts, and the bank account will get confirmed. And you make a transfer. It's only when you are doing the RECO, maybe after 6 months, maybe after a month, maybe after 15 days, where the query will come up that, hey, look, you haven't made payment for this invoice. And you say, yeah, I have made payment. And you send the details. And that's when almost after a month or almost after 2 months, you understand that somebody was there lurking for a few months, has compromised and transferred a couple of invoices. If for 15 days or 1 month, there is no red flag, the hacker, the attacker, the malicious actor will repeat it. And this, friends, is something which we deal with regularly. How do you save yourself from that? Okay. So typical example is you defend against BEC. You ensure that you double check the email address from where it is coming. That's the most important one. Of course, in a BEC, that normally is not a good case because the person has already hacked into either your vendor or your account and has known that detail. If it's a large transaction and there is a change management requires you to make an actual voice call and confirm. And also, you have to be clear that any change or any suspicious activity should be immediately reported. So if something like this happens, you should immediately and urgently report it. We have had a case, thankfully, with one of our customers who a lot of money on the tune of more than $40,000 was saved because the person who had done the transaction reported it immediately, and because it was Christmas time, the transaction wasn't made. It was an international transaction. The banks there had shut down, and the money was saved. So please ensure that you report any such incidents. And please, you come from, all of you all mostly come from a corporate environment. There is nothing. We all get into situations. Your objective here is to immediately, and also tell your team members that if such a thing like that happens, please report immediately. With that, we want to just try a poll. So I'm getting into a poll. I hope there's a poll which is coming up on your screen. Just want to know your feedback on a couple of things, if you'd be kind enough to answer those. Is there a poll coming up? Okay, I can see a poll coming up. I hope it's coming on your screen. I'll give you a few seconds. Who do you think should be responsible for cybersecurity in your company? Interesting. You could answer anything. Who do you think? I'll come to this. This is an interesting take, and but you know how this happens. All this whole BEC happens because what is the precursor to BEC? How does the person get into your account or your vendor's account? It is through something called as phishing. So let me first explain you the 4 major threats which companies face. First is phishing. To get into phishing, there is also an option of a password attack. Okay, then there's a malware attack, which is used to cause a lot of loss. It's a very interesting story since I am in the industry and analyze how malware attack moved to BEC in India and why. It's because of our Indian mentality, and it's unique to India. And of course, finally, insider threat. So what is phishing? Basically, phishing is a type of online scam where attackers pretend to be of a reputable company to trick you into giving away sensitive information, such as passwords and other personal information. What happens is the person fakes a website. It could be Amazon, it could be Nike, it could be e-commerce site, it could be your own company's website, it could primarily be your SharePoint site, it could be any of those sites which, so the person basically fakes it. And what happens after that is the account is compromised. The password has been gone. Now I'll show you a couple of examples of how this happens. First, you should be clear that read the URL, which is on the top on your web browser very clearly, if in case you by chance click on a phishing email. Phishing's most basic target is email. And there is a link when you click on it. This is an old system, but it still works. Trust me, many companies we have investigated, we have found that people have not checked the URL and clicked on things. Just adding an extra N, adding an alpha character, adding a special character in it confuses the person into giving a username and password. But this is Amazon. How would it harm my company? I'll come to that why your password, which is on your Amazon or your Nike or your big basket, would impact your company. But this is something else which is pretty obvious, where the person sends a mail and it looks as if it has come from your company. It looks as if it has come from Microsoft, and it is asking you to please reset your password. This is a very genuine IT request which comes occasionally with companies who have password policy where they change the passwords every 90 days. And that's pretty interesting. But again, just like you check the URL, you have to check the email ID. And you have to understand how a single R in Microsoft or how a single character can fool you, because otherwise everything looks perfectly fine. And when you click on this, what happens next is you have it goes to a site which is sharepoint.com. Wow, that URL now also is genuine. How did that happen? Is Microsoft involved with this? Or is Google involved with this? Or is Amazon involved? No. I can create a free account. As you see, this is a personal account. I have gone into a personal OneDrive account which can be created free. Your username and password is captured. If I hit a company and I do it for 100 people, I'm sure I will find so many people who will put in their username, email ID, and password. And from then on, I do not take action. I just sit and watch. This one is pretty common if you're from accounts or if you're this. It basically is, and this is pretty prevalent. It keeps on changing. In Mumbai recently, it's been happening on WhatsApp, RTO scams. And income tax, GST is something which is always successful by hackers. They will primarily send you an email which looks so genuine. The email ID, the email ID looks genuine, everything. Even the URL, if you don't notice, will look very genuine, except that it's from a box account. You have to look before the .com, what is the ID, not at the end of it. Again, we have found cases where this has happened pretty frequently. So as you see, that getting your credentials is the first phishing, is the first step to getting into BEC or to compromising your company's security. And for that, your users have to, everybody has to check anything which is out of ordinary. You have to check the URL, you have to check when it is asking, you have to ask if anything is out of ordinary. So what precautions can I take? Okay, of course, the precautions are pretty simple. Verify an email sender, hover over links. I know you say this is pretty over, but when you go over a link, you can see it. But you have, I told you something happened 30 days back in front of me, and that was very surprising. Attachments, never ever open attachments. I know a lot of you all earn $10 million lotteries every day. You get money from a Nigerian prince, but please, there could be a genuine one saying you have got an IT return, an income tax refund of 2.5 lakh rupees, and you will be wow, and you open it. So I know the Nigerian prince scam doesn't work, but an income tax return or a GST or an award from Amazon or a free parcel from Nike works. Verify requests from sensitive information like email, password, check for typos and grammar errors. Now, this is very interesting previously, and I'm sure you all must have seen the memes. A lot of people, the mistakes they make on the scam messages or an email, they used to have a lot of these interesting typos. You could say, oh man, if the bank is making this kind of typos, I would smell that from far away. But that also is solved, thankfully, because of ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT creates a beautiful email, a beautiful scam, which you will not be able to. So, the hackers are also getting more intelligent, using artificial intelligence, machine learning to launch better attacks. And these are simple ones, just grammar. I think sometimes we make more spelling mistakes than they do now with ChatGPT because they are more clever and they have better intentions than us. And of course, for phishing, if you feel by mistake you have loaded, report immediately. I'm going to keep on saying this because this is very critical. Anything happens, report immediately. Now, there is a misconception where he says, hey, look, I have antivirus, I have firewall, I have this security in my company, I have that security in my company, I have something called as DMARC implemented, I have this. Now, I'm safe. And this question has come up to me in various trainings of mine. And I would like to take that, which is an antivirus anti-phishing tool? Can an antivirus change me from phishing? So here, when you go to see, you see a virus is basically a malicious program. It comes in here. It is basically trying to harm you through taking your data across. Primarily malware, and it includes a worm or it includes a spyware or ransomware. Anti-phishing is not that. A phishing is not that. An antivirus cannot protect you if you're fooled into yourself giving information across. Yes, to a large extent, now antivirus, various different filter out many things. And my last example in today's session will explain to you and show you really what happened last month, where everything was in place. DMARC was in place, the best firewalls were in place, and how the company. So basically, phishing is a form of cyber attack that tricks you into giving your information. It may not cause an immediate damage. I will keep that information and I may use it after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, whenever you are most susceptible for such this kind of thing. So I hope you understand that an antivirus is not the same thing as a phishing. Moving on to the favorite subject of a lot of people, a place which is the most easiest to compromise. And for that, I would request you to again take in the last poll. It's an interesting poll. Let me see how confident you are about this. So can we have a poll coming up, please? Okay, how long? Oh, this is interesting. How long do you think it will take a hacker to crack a 6-character password that includes uppercase, lowercase, symbol, and numbers? Your bank says that please use special characters, use numbers. I'm going to. I think if I use uppercase, lowercase, symbol, and numbers, I should be safe enough, right? Wow. Even if I use that, a lot of people think that a hacker would crack this in 4 seconds or in 6 hours or in 3 months or in 5 years. So let me share this chart with you. This is a 2023 chart. And this tells you approximately how long this would take for a hacker to crack your password. A hacker uses a brute force. So in case it gets something like a SAM list, or it gets basically a credential file, a confidential file which is encrypted using a password, or it has an access to your account, I think I don't want to explain this further. I want you to see this slide. I want you to understand that how easy it is if your password is 6 characters for somebody to brute force attacks. So I think it's pretty obvious from this slide. All of you all come from a good understanding of security, but in 2023, and these figures are only going to get smaller using AI and cloud as services to basically process and carry on brute force attacks. And the dictionaries which are available now are quite more powerful than they were available last year also. So these numbers are only going to get smaller. I think the summary of this is pretty obvious that it's the length of the password which is important. So people, a lot of people of you all know it, but I still would like I wanted to share this slide with you for people who may not. You could go to this website, have I been pawned, pwned.com. Quite a lot of you all must be knowing this site, so go there, put in your account, maybe your Google, your Hotmail, your company, and please try to see where all the compromises happen. I'm going to give you a 5-second break. If you have, you can go, or you can take down this website URL and go later. And you will tell me, okay, wow, my Zomato password is compromised, but I don't need that. Or my Big Basket password, or my Nykaa password, or my Amazon password is compromised. So what? Somebody's going to order vegetables using your ID to their house. Is that what worries you? No, no. Sorry. So the idea is that if I have what passwords you have used in 3 or 4 of your accounts, I would be able to use an AI engine to predict what your password is. And for whatever reason, many of you all may have used the password which you have used in Zomato or Book My Show or Big Basket with a simple variation in your bank account or in your company account, or it is with your family account. And this is all that I need to create and compromise your account. I do not need to do anything. So every password which you repeat becomes primarily a threat to you. If you have used that password, which is in a simple Zomato account, or you say, oh, okay, for simple things, I use a simple password, but for my bank, I use a complex password. With the AI engines available today, all I need to know is your mentality. If you are repeating your passwords, sometime or the other, you will get compromised. So you have to have a unique password for each and every account. And if you don't have, you are surely someday or the other going to get hacked. But you're going to say, hey, look, how do I remember 300 accounts and 300 passwords I have? So I'm going to show you a very simple way of how to remember your password, okay? First of all, use a simple phrase or sentence, like give me some sunshine, give me some rain. You can make that into pretty complex, long, using special character passwords. A lot of people use combination. Do not use things like family names. Do not use things like gods. Do not use things like which are familiar on religion. Those are very easy on dictionary attacks. Company names. What I would like you to do is that how many you remember? You still would not be able to remember, say, 50 or 60 or 80. And the thing is that if it's your child's account which is compromised, or it's in your family somebody gets compromised, that threat comes to you, and when you get compromised, your risk becomes the risk of your company. It is not in the scope of this session to explain you how this, but it does. So how do I remember so many passwords? That is the question. And how do I have different passwords? At least one password like this you can remember. So what you do is, there has been a tool for ages and people are not using it. And I would really, really recommend that if you still find difficulty, forget your passwords, use a password manager. These are the 5 password managers which are popular. Apple users, Android users, works on mobile phone, works on computers, works on the Windows, works under Mac. You can use any, and you just need to remember one password, which is a long 12 to 15 character password, which is complex for that account. Once you go into that, use these password managers, you can store all your other passwords, which are complex, into this. And for people who do not want to spend the money on one password or LastPass, KeePass and Bitwarden, both are completely free. Both are completely secure. They use an encryption, which is very, very difficult, as long as your password, that one password which you have, which goes into it, is a long, complex password. So all your life, you just have to remember one password. And this syncs clearly between your desktop, your laptop, and your mobile phone. Malware attack is something which a lot of people have faced, where a virus comes into it and starts encrypting your data. The easiest example for that is primarily ransomware, where all your data gets encrypted. The person sends in a mail saying that if you want your data back, we have cases where people have lost data, especially chartered accountants, legal professionals who have lost a lot of data because of this. And because their documents are important, their files are important. Ransomware used to be 3 years back the number one area where India was compromised. But again, as I said initially in my session, that's something which didn't work for the other country hackers in India, because a lot of people would not give the ransom. They said, forget the data, we type it back again. But BEC works. BEC works. So what precautions do I have to take for malware attack? First of all, backup. Not local backup, not a USB hard disk backup, not an accounts backup. All these things, you need to have a proper backup, which is not on your server, which is not on your local drive, which is not an external USB drive. Malware or ransomware gets on only on unpatched systems. So there is something called as zero-day attack. If you've not patched your systems, your company, you are primarily prone to a ransomware attack. Network segmentation. This is a little technical for people who are coming from the technology area. They can understand that I can create VLANs, I can separate my network so the ransomware doesn't spread from one network to the other. Of course, email security augmentation. You have various different programs which now basically ensure that the email is initially screened, and if it contains any malicious things, it is blocked. And one of the biggest places where we have found ransomware attack is because of remote access. You have given remote access using one of these remote control software for your Tally, for your ERP, for your computer debugging, and it is unmonitored. That person had installed it and left. That was 3 months back, and that thing still remains. Let me be very clear. The only solution to ransomware is to recover from backup. There is no other solution, and it is important that you don't pay ransom. We have many times told clients who have come to us that do not pay ransom, have gone ahead and paid ransom, and all they did was became a soft target on the dark web to be hit again and again and again. The last one is interesting. I was talking about 4. The 4th one is interesting. It's basically an insider threat. It means people from your company. The problem happens is that a compromised user is somebody in your company who just doesn't understand the importance of security. They need to understand that how they basically risk the entire company by saying, hey, look, this is it. So if the user does not even understand security, how is he going to protect? Secondly, users who are not who are compromised but do not really take that in a serious manner. And finally, there is malicious users who actually copy a set of data, use an email forwarder, copy all the emails across, take data on pen drives. So these kind of users are the ones which create an insider threat. You have to be very clear that any of these, whether intentionally or unintentionally, can damage much more than just that person's computer. The precautions are pretty easy for insider threats. You need to enforce a strong password policy. You need to ensure that there is MFA, multi-factor authentication, that is your OTP for your email account and accessing employment. One important thing which people need to do is implement the principle of least privilege. That means if the person doesn't need access to that folder, why give it just because he's in the department? You should have encryption of data. Use data leakage protection tools, which will tell you that data, a large amount of data is being copied out, copied in, transfers are being done unauthorized. And one of the major areas we find is that in the IT policy, employee training and awareness has not been taken. So the employee does not even understand that this could trigger a problem in their company. This is something which we find very common. And finally, a good thing for insider threat is you go for a compliance like an ISO standard, because when you do an ISO 27001 or the whole ISO 27000 standards, your companies go through security training or they go through various different kind of framework, everything is checked, and you come to know that, oh, look, I need to put in a no smoking sign in my company. Because if you don't put a no smoking sign in your company, that means everybody's allowed to smoke. Similarly, if you say that, okay, hacking is not allowed, if you've not told that person that you cannot do this, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, it becomes a problem. So making your entire company aware of the threats is one of the most important things which you should be doing. This is an interesting slide I have come up with. A lot of people tell me that what will be the best way. I have just summarized it. This is an entire presentation on its own, which is about a 2-hour presentation. But since I want to give you the maximum value in this session, I am trying to do this. I basically feel that defenses can be created 3 areas. One is governance, which I just mentioned, that you could have a framework, an ISO 27001 framework or a COBIT framework, and use that framework to make your company secure. Once those standards have been met, people are sensitized, you are audited, you understand it. The second is, of course, obvious, the technology part of it. You have WAPs, which are firewalls, you have endpoint security. One of the most important things which people forget is something called as MDM, mobile device management. Mobiles become a very big threat to companies. That's where a lot of data leakage happens. And finally, what people need to understand is that they need to understand the risk. In the risk, if you do not know what is the risk, what is your critical data, how will you create the governance and the technology platform? A pharmaceutical company, a bank, a manufacturing company, a stockbroker, the risks are completely different. The way they work previously, before March 2020, a lot of financial institutions prohibited work from home. You understand what happened in April of 2020, where people did not understand the risk. People were not ready. People had not implemented the governance, the technology, and therefore business came to a standstill, especially for financial institutes. And people do not understand that for a pharmaceutical company, maybe intellectual property is much bigger. For a bank, there are different kinds of things. For every organization, if you do not do an assessment, you do not have security awareness training, and you do not understand, and you do not monitor the security all the time, and you do not understand what is going on, you are not, your technology and your governance is not going to help. So I'm going to brush on 2-3 slides. What I mentioned to you is governance is very important, and it's very important to have an information security policy. So one thing which you could do is you would ensure that your information technology policy is different from your information security policy. Yes, the information technology policy may talk about assets, handover of the computer, how they should handle the computer, what they should do. But also the information security policy looks at concepts like physical security. What if you leave your laptop outside? What if you do not log off from your computer? What about access control? What about mobile computing? Are you allowed to do these things on your mobile, which is also used for work? Are you allowed to do hacking? No, nothing is explicit. Unless explicitly mentioned, nothing is prohibited. Should you use wireless access? Are you allowed to use your laptop at an airport on public Wi-Fi? Do you have a clean desk policy? Is it okay to leave printouts? Is it okay to leave this? All this should be a part of your information security policy. Now coming in, how do I enforce this? And this is also something which we come on a day-to-day basis. There is an IT Act 2000, which is going to be revised hopefully in 2023 by the Parliament, which primarily says that we want to protect your personal data. This is not the data prevention, the Personal Data Protection Act. Here we are talking about an IT Act which was set in 2000, which is 23 years back. It says it's a crime if you do hacking. It also says that you cannot, do illegal or unlawful activities, and you can be prosecuted for that in your company, including sending defamatory messages, offensive content. If you use your office computers, if you use your ID, if you use your, but you need to tell this to your employees. You need to make them aware. And finally, this causes a legal compliance, right? So in the legal compliance, both the aspects come in that if the IT Act comes into motion for an incident which happens in your company, the individual, of course, is responsible. He is responsible for the actions and he's liable to be prosecuted, and an FIR can be launched against that. But also the organization and the directors can be prosecuted and they are held responsible. And this is known as vicarious liability, that primarily they did not enforce. So your IT Act, what have you done to ensure that the employee was aware is very important. Will help and protect your company from security risks, and will ensure that the individual who may have in a malicious intent taken this action is prosecuted properly. This is more or less the last kind of slide which talks about information, deals with this concept of saying, hey, what should I do? The most important thing is that when there is a security incident, I'm repeating it again for the third time, is that immediately raise an alarm. They should immediately raise an alarm. They should go to your HOD. This slide can be changed based on your company's. They could go to IT, they could go to your HOD, they could go to a CISO, they could go to an information security officer in your company. The end user is responsible for primarily reporting incidents, and anything which they have to immediately raise an alarm. It's like a fire, and it can do more damage than maybe a small fire. I hope this has been clear. The next 3 slides, as I told you, I promised you that at the end of the presentation, I will take it. This is a case study which actually happened. An email came in, and it seemed to one of our employees, and we felt that, oh wow, the person responded saying, oh, it's come from our CEO, and this is exactly what happened. That came from our CEO, and the person responded, oh, sorry, I couldn't respond. And, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. And the person got scared and responded. And the person responded without checking the email ID in detail from where it has come. They just saw the display name which said Nazmin Ansari. And immediately when the person responded, in a second, they got a response for transfer of money. Now, I'll tell you why this is tricky and why our email systems also could not track this. Because it came from a legit company. DingTalk, this if you see, this comes from DingTalk. DingTalk is a legitimate company. It is doing business. There is no way this can be classified as a malicious website. It has nothing. It has everything in place. Now, DingTalk is a genuine website, and they have implemented the best of security measures. They have done a DMARC. We checked that using our tools. We checked whether the domain was compromised, something had happened. No, they are completely fine. So they are fine. Our security systems were in place, but yet one of our users was about to fall into a scam. And the only answer to that is, if your employees have not been made aware through a security awareness training program, they will respond in this manner. They have not been told that you have to check the URL. They have not been told these things. Now, this, as I said, the company's actually been compromised and somebody has access to usernames and passwords in their server. Therefore, they are using this company. And that's why even our systems will not hold it, because it's a valid domain. So finally, cybersecurity is an equal responsibility of the organization, of the vendor, because your vendors are also very important, and the employee. Now you have to decide what's your responsibility. Thank you very much. You all have been a very patient audience. I hope I have been able to create value. Feel free to comment, like, you can connect to me on LinkedIn, or if you want to know more about security, you can connect to Murtaza. We have our URLs, and then you can take that forward. I think I will now give the stage to Shreya. I hope I
Definitely.
Okay, Shreya, please take over.
Yes. Thank you, Parvez, for this interesting session. And I apologize for the initial technical glitch. Many of you might be curious about this. So we have Parvez with us to answer all your queries. So I request you to raise your hand. We'll unmute you one by one. And if any questions, you can ask us. And on the laptops, you will get it on the top, and on the mobile, you'll get it in the down, the raise hand section. So we have one Parvez. He's Devendu Bhore. So can we unmute?
Yeah.
Hello, sir. It was a great session. I would just like to understand if this are the things that is necessary and this is enough to protect our company from this kind of attacks.
There are a lot of things in security, Devindu, which we will. Thank you very much for your question. Uh, Threats are always evolving. If you do not do a review of the threats, and if you do not make your security aligned to what are the threats which are happening right now, it's like having an antivirus and not updating the virus definition. So yes, you will have to continuously keep on monitoring. You will have to see what are the threats to your organization and then put in the tools. So security awareness training program, a governance framework, and of course technology, which is an anti-phishing, your email system, your firewall. All these three have to combine to make the difference. And of course, as I said, that after all this also, your assessment and your ability to keep your employees, because companies have people leaving, people joining, this training has to go on. I hope that answers your question, Dipendu. Next.
Yes, we have one more. So we are sharing one feedback form in the chat section. So kindly just give your 2 minutes to giving the suggestions there in the feedback form. Meanwhile, I'll take IT help desk. Can you, may I know your good name? IT help desk, am I audible to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
Alauddin here. Okay.
Hi, Alauddin.
Hi, sir. Sir, very good afternoon. So my question is that we are a ISO certified 27,000 one company. Okay. Do we still need security training regularly?
Security awareness training is in fact mandatory if you're ISO 27001. It is important that your training to be conducted because you will have people joining and leaving all the time. Hello? You will have people leaving and joining. I'm sorry, somebody. So you will have to basically have people leaving and people joining. So it is very important that security awareness training is done all the time. Secondly, the threats. Every 3 months, every 6 months, there are new threats. If you're not going to inform your employees, how do you expect them to respond in a proper manner? So yes, the training is important regularly based on the attrition, based on the way your people join and come. So as an ISO company, in fact, it is mandatory that you have security awareness training programs. I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, so we had these two. Anyone who's willing to ask any question to Mr. Parvez?
You can take that offline later on, send us an email or whatever.
Yes, Parvez, we have one more last question. Mukesh Kapse. Yes, can we unmute them?
Mukesh, I would request you to just unmute yourself, please.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, Mukesh, I can hear you now.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, Parvez. It
Good
was
afternoon.
a awesome session actually. I just want to know this training session can be conducted at our office or is it available online?
Yeah. So that's in fact I published a blog last week. You can go and read it. I think it's very important to have an actual on-premise with your people, a small group, say about 20 people, have this security awareness training program because online is like a YouTube video. People do not really take the seriousness of it. So, and also this policy, the training program should be aligned to your company's IT policy and what your company does. So if you are coming from, let's say, banking sector, the security awareness training program should be aligned to that. It should be aligned to the kind of email system you use. It should be aligned to what your the way you use your servers, whether you're a cloud company born in cloud or you're an on-premise company. So I think it makes great sense to have a customized security awareness training program for your company. I hope that is there. And it will be much, obviously, to hold the attention span, this is just a kind of a brief, how much I could put in 45 minutes. But a typical training program is about 2 hours and goes a little bit more into detail, understands quizzes, understands tests, and ensures that your employees are completely aware of the threats. I hope that answers your question, Mukesh.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then thank you so much for being such an amazing audience. We've shared a small poll. If you can answer that, that would be great. Also, keep an eye on our social media and emails for forthcoming webinars. Parvez, me and our team are always available to help you. Get in touch with us. Contact shared in the chat. We are also available on LinkedIn as said. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Shreya. Lovely.
Thank you.